make it just after 3 o'clock, so I'm going to get started. I will keep an eye on the waiting room. So firstly, welcome to February's One for All. If I could ask you all to keep your microphones muted until we go into the breakout rooms or the Q&A, so that we can keep the background noise down, that would be great. For those of you who I don't know or haven't met me, my name's Hayley Monks, and I am one of the founders of the Women's Utility Network. So I'm your facilitator for today. So if you have any issue with the sort of technology or what's happening, please just message me in the chat. And I'm going to hand over now to Shana Matson, who is one of our advocates, who's going to introduce you to today's event.
Thanks, Hayley. As Hayley mentioned, I'm Shana Matson. I work for Cadent. We are a partner with the Women's Utility Network, and part of my role is the mentoring advocate. So that's around, really connecting women within our network to each other to develop women and retain all this amazing talent that we have within our network. I also am the Diversity and Inclusion Manager within Cadent, a role that I absolutely love and something that impacts us probably all here on this course. So today's agenda I'm really excited about. We've got a mentoring piece from Angie Needle, and then we'll move on to a guest speaker piece. So we've got Kripa Subramanian and also Fiona Tremlett, and they're here to talk about their experiences with WUN mentoring. They've both been involved in our mentoring program, mentoring other people as well, which is great. And then we'll do some breakouts in terms of how we get ourselves into the mentoring space and into the mentoring mindset. If you want to become a mentor, how do you start? If you're thinking about needing a mentor, how do you start? And also signposting and kind of getting over any of those nerves that we might have with starting a new mentoring relationship. We'll then move on to some Q&A after that, and then I'll point you in the direction of the WUN mentoring program, and we'll wrap it up towards the end of the session. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Angie Needle, who'll be talking about mentoring.
Thanks, Shana. Hi everybody. It's brilliant to have so many people on the call today, and I know some of you are mentors already, and I know some of you are mentees too, and on our program, and there's an opportunity during this session to sort of get involved a little bit in some of your and share some of your experiences. So I'm Angie Needle. I'm founder of the Women's Utility Network, as well as being the Director of Strategy at Cadent Gas, and I spend most of my time, I must admit, talking about hydrogen and the transition of the energy networks to that. But how refreshing it is to have a few minutes out of my day to talk about something else actually that's quite important to me. And so I've always benefited from having mentoring relationships, and I remember in my early career how important it was to have somebody to talk to who was a bit like me, and in that they walked in my future shoes, if that makes sense, who I could talk to about some of the challenges that you have, especially in our sector where it's not always clear on where the career paths are, or you don't always have the kinds of relationships with your immediate organisation that really sort of push you in the right way. So as part of WUN, the Women's Utility Network, we really wanted to make sure that we use the amazing talent that's within our membership to help each other. And that's why we set up our own mentoring program, which it's really a dating agency for people who want mentors and mentees, and to set a framework out that works for you. So I'm just going to talk a little bit today about what it's like being a mentor, what it's like being a mentee, the kind of awesome rules. I was going to say unwritten rules, but actually there's quite a lot of written rules about mentoring as well if you go and search for them. And what mentoring is and what it isn't. If you can just, yeah, that's great. You can stay on that slide. I'll tell you when to move on. And then I'm going to also then talk about how you might access the programme and some of the things you need to think about, and some of the challenges that you have when you want to become either a mentor or a mentee. So just to tell you a little bit about me first and my mentoring experience. So always had a mentor. And that sounds a bit strange because I haven't always been in work, but from when I started working, and I started at Anglian Water as a graduate, I was given a mentor, and his name was David Edge. And he was a sort of slightly intimidating, very senior person in the water sector. And I remember sitting down thinking, I've got no idea what to talk to this chap about. We were given a mentor regardless of whether you felt like you needed one or not. So I think there's quite an important thing about reaching out to somebody when you feel it's right for you. That's quite important. But David Edge was amazing, and he was one of those people who was really good at putting in the sort of the most critical silent moments. So what he would do is he would know full well that I would fill silence with noise and start talking if he left that gap for just long enough. So I learned early on that silence is good, right? And sometimes you need to allow that silence to help people think, and also just to get people to say a little bit more than they would do normally because they feel a bit awkward and want to fill the silence with something. So he was my first experience of mentoring, and I must say, and I was in my 20s then, I've had mentors the whole way along. Right, and you will need mentors for all kinds of different reasons as you go through your career, and both within and outside of your organisation, and networking, having a networking mentor, if that makes sense, outside of your organisation is quite important too. I also have some sort of qualification type experience with mentoring, in that I've had 40 hours of training in sort of a mentoring development program, which helps me understand really why it's not just having a cup of tea with somebody, which sometimes feels lovely, but is not quite getting to the point. And for those of you who want to be mentors or are thinking about it, because I've not only been mentored, but you get to a point where you want to give back, and so you flip and start doing a bit of both. Being a mentor gives you a wonderful sense of purpose. You're helping somebody achieve their best. I mean, how fulfilling is that? And actually, you tend to learn things from mentoring people that you perhaps wouldn't learn from just being a line manager or just being a friend. It's actually quite a different dynamic, which is really very helpful. So if you want to flick on to the next slide for me. So go back one. I'm losing track of my slide. So let me talk to you about what mentoring is. So mentoring is really, and this is sort of my words, but it's knowing when to offer your experience, because mentoring is not coaching, right? And this is quite important because people get mentoring and coaching confused. Coaching is something that you pay for. Coaching, if you're a coach, you've got a profession, you're qualified to become a coach. People pay for it. You're usually a psychologist or got a lot of training and development in leadership styles and approaches and skills and behaviours. And coaching tends to be short term and paid for. Mentoring is different. So mentoring is voluntary. So mentors and mentees do it out of the love and the learning experience. And it's based on experience. So mentors tend to be usually 2 levels higher than the mentee, and you get to offer your experience. You get to provide just a sort of slightly bigger perspective to the individual who's being mentored, and that's really powerful. Actually, if I think back to myself when I was in my 20s, just having somebody to speak to who'd already trodden the path that I was thinking of treading, just really valuable, and you can almost cut some of the corners by having somebody to really help you think things through. So the importance between mentoring and coaching, just that's important. So if you just pop onto the next slide for me. So if you're thinking of becoming a mentee, that is somebody who needs mentoring, there'll be things that you're asking yourself, because I think sometimes people think, well, you know, I won't be taken seriously unless I've got a mentor, and they like to sort of have the badge. I've got a mentor, you know, I've written it on my CV, mentor, and it's somebody really important, right? Tick, got a mentor, I'm going places. But that is not what mentoring is really for. Mentoring is to help you do things and think differently about achieving your goals, whatever they may be. So how do you know you need a mentor? I found that when I was in a situation where I did not know what to do, and I wanted to speak to somebody who was not my line manager, and there was more than one way of achieving what I was thinking through, then having a mentor is really helpful. And you'll find that at various stages in your careers, you'll need mentors for different things. So you'll know you need a mentor when you find yourself, usually it's a career stage. What do I want to do next? How do I get to where I want to go? What advice do you have for me in these kinds of situations? How do I become a better leader manager? What kinds of sideways moves can I have to get to where I'm thinking of going? So they're the key times when mentoring will work for you. I do think it's important before you approach somebody for mentoring that you think carefully what it is that you want help with, because otherwise it will end up like those coffee chats where it's lovely and you've had a nice chat but you haven't really done anything. And don't forget, your mentor's time is precious, as is yours. So think carefully about what it is specifically that you want help with, and on our WUN pages where you can apply to be mentored, there's an opportunity for you to put down what you think you want help with. And by the way, it could be anything. It can be anything from career moves, awkward conversations, how do I make a specific thing happen? And you don't have to just fix on one thing with your mentor. You could focus on one thing and then move on to lots of other things. So I've mentioned already, it's not a badge to collect. If you're going to have the badge, you need to have earned it. So make sure that you really have your mentoring for the right reasons. And it's up to you how the mentoring works. So you are in the driving seat for mentoring. You organise the sessions, you decide how many you need, you decide when they are, you do all the actions. So the mentor's there to sort of help you, work through what it is that you want to do. And you can have more than one mentor. Like, try not to have too many because it feels a bit like you're cheating on one mentor. But you might want to have somebody within your organisation because they help you with a particular thing, but you also might want to have a mentor outside of your organisation. And that's why the WUN network is so helpful, actually, because we've got so many people in our network now that actually you can reach out to other women or men, actually, across our network that can assist you by thinking broader about your challenges. Mentoring is completely confidential. You must not share anything in it or anything discussed unless permission has been granted. And there's this unwritten rules around mentoring. And obviously you can end your mentoring relationship at any time, and that's quite important, actually, because sometimes they just dribble away like, well, we haven't organised a meeting because I just didn't. That's not a great way to end a mentoring relationship. The best thing to do is set it up at the beginning. Well, let's have 3 sessions to talk about this. After the end of those 3, let's think if we need any more sessions. So having a good ending to your mentoring relationship is important. And there does need to be an end. So don't collect mentors and keep them all going forever. You need to sort of, move on at some point, and your mentor would encourage you to do that too. So in our mentoring program, we tend to say you have between 4 and 8 sessions over a year, and then you take stock. So then if I talk about mentors for a bit, so and by the way, I've still got a mentor, and I still mentor people too. So I think it doesn't matter where you are in your career, you always need help from somebody. So for mentors, it is a bit different. So you really do have to make the time and space to do this. So you can't sort of do it half-heartedly, although I always find time to fit in an hour's conversation with mentees. It's not that hard to find time. I tend to have 2 or 3 going at once and meet them every 6 to 8 weeks or so. So it's not a massive time commitment. And you will often sort of wonder whether you're important enough to mentor somebody. Well, if you've had any kind of career at all, it doesn't matter for how long, you can provide good advice, right? And it's just that your experience is different from somebody else's. So I would encourage you to think about mentoring especially if you've been mentored yourself, because you know we've got to give back at some point. So have a little think about that. Again, usually about 6 to 8 sessions, and the durations of those sessions can vary. So you have to have a think about sort of what suits you. I've genuinely found a massive shift with the COVID pandemic, because I was very much of the mindset that you really needed to do mentoring face to face. And it does help, because you can see the whole of a person and their body language and how they're responding to things. And mentoring conversations can be really quite personal sometimes, and you can sort of delve into things that, you know, can have emotional responses. And so actually doing that over video, where you're in the safety of your own home, where you can grab a tissue if needs be, is actually really helpful, and not having to manage diaries where you have to be in the same place. So what the COVID has done actually is allow us access to each other in a way that we would have never had. And I've actually started, and I'm running a few mentoring relationships, and I've never physically met the individuals, and it seems to be working, you know, fine so far. Other things sort of to point you, if you're going to plan to be a mentor, you know, don't collect too many, you know, make sure you can, I've said this before for mentees, but it's the same thing for mentoring, like let them go once you've helped them on their way. I mean, your job really as a mentor is you can instill a sense of belief in somebody. And I can't tell you how important that is for individuals when they know they've got somebody who believes in them, and they might not have had that. And that is a massive deal for women. You've got confidence in them that they can do it. It's like a superpower. So you've got an opportunity to make somebody's life better by just helping them think through some of their challenges. Something to bear in mind, like, yes, it's confidential. You are not a careers advisor, so your job is not to get them promoted. Often we get, you know, one of the things that you mentor a lot about is like next career moves. Your job is not to make it happen for them, just to help them work through their own approach. And sometimes you can feel a bit like you really ought to help them more, but you know, that is not what you're for. So don't feel like you need to do that. And again, with lots of other things that we've said about mentoring, you can stop at any time. It's a voluntary thing. So if for whatever reason it's hard, you know, some mentoring relationships, they don't work perfect first time, that's okay. You know, you can always find another mentor or always find another mentee. So I would encourage those of you who have got a few years under your belt to really have a think about whether you might want to have a go at mentoring. If you could pop onto the next slide. I've just got a couple more bits just to share with you. This model on mentoring is really helpful. Hopefully you can see it clearly, and it just gives a little wheel to run through in any mentoring session that helps you navigate what could effectively be a more effective meeting, if that makes sense. So there's a bit at the beginning on contracting. So that's where you go, what do you want to get out of this session? Like, what will good look like at the end? Are there any particular things that you want to talk about? How long have you got? If it runs on a bit more than you think, is that okay? Are we going to touch on anything, you know, emotional? How do you want me to push you? Do you want me to hold back and wait for you to say everything, or do you want me to jump in? So you've got a bit at the beginning where you can contract, like, how is it going to work? And then you need to sort of bring on the challenges. So, okay, what is it we're going to talk about? Well, the key things, what's going on for you? You can ask those questions, you know, what's going on for you? What's happened since we last met? How are things progressing? You know, those kinds of really open questions where you can get the challenges out there. And once you've sort of worked out what you want to work on, you know, what choices does the mentee have? Help them think of options. Well, it isn't just one way. There's a multitude of different ways. There is always choice, always choice. So and then you can explore those choices. What do they mean? What kinds of things might happen if they pick one? Help them kick the tires of the consequences, which is the next one, of those choices. And then the next one is, you know, this is where mentors like bring their stuff, like, you know, from your experience, what have you witnessed? How have you seen these things happen? How would you evaluate those consequences? So you can help them work those things through. And I usually, by the end of a mentoring session, you've landed on 2 or 3 things that really hone in on the sort of nub of something. And there's usually a few revelations on the way, in my experience. So you often have a session where you don't quite know what you're going to talk about, and you may well have changed somebody's life in an hour because they've realised something, either about themselves or something that they need to do, which they can then go and experiment with. So I usually leave people with what actions are you going to take? How are you going to know it's working? What tests are you going to do? How are you going to challenge yourself so that you've got sort of that setup for the next session if indeed you need it? So that's it's a sort of well tried and tested model. You can look at the book, The 6 C's of Mentoring, as well, from Mike Pegg, and it's a good one if you really are interested in the psychology that sits around mentoring. And then I'm not going to use this slide because I think I've run out of time. I think I dropped that one out. Yeah, thank you. So the best thing about mentoring is, from my point of view, especially because I guess other people bring all kinds of different things, so there's a great group of people, and we'll talk about it in a bit, I guess, but it feels good, right? So that's why I do it. It makes me feel good, makes me feel like I've made a difference to somebody, no matter how small. And seeing other people flourish is really very motivating. You get that sense of personal achievement and satisfaction. And as a mentee, you can make things happen that probably you hadn't thought about. So your mentor relationship really is the making of your future career, whatever you want that to be. So you're having a small part in someone's future greatness, which is brilliant. And there's some real benefits to you if you choose to be a mentor as well, and a mentee. Actually, you'll learn some stuff along this journey. So it is a skill, mentoring people, asking those open questions, helping people work through the answers, not telling them what to do, but helping them work it out for themselves. That's quite a skill. That's something that helps you in your leadership development conversations, that makes you a better leader in the future. It expands your network and your horizons. So brilliant mentoring somebody from a different organisation who's got different challenges and different things on their plate. And I've written on here, you can learn from the millennials. Like, there's a lot of things that I learn as to how the younger ones in our organisation and our network do things and think about things. That is different. That is useful when it comes to you being a leader of an organisation that's got more of that in it. And there's a sort of fact that gets written about, although I'm not quite sure whether I've ever really checked it, which is you're 6 times more likely to get promoted if you're have been mentored. And don't forget, you can ask for your mentor to give you a testimonial, right? So I'm applying for this job. Can you put a word in, please? So there's opportunities for you to use your network here. So hopefully I've set the scene on what sort of value you can get from your mentoring relationships, whether you're on the mentor side or the mentee side. There's room for both in your life if you want them. And I would just say that I've personally benefited from both easily. And I would encourage those who've not thought about it to give it a good go. So I think that was the last of my slides, Shauna.
Amazing, thank you. So yeah, really good overview of mentoring, Angie, and I loved hearing your nuggets and your personal experiences. So we're going to move on to our guest speakers, Fiona and Kripa, who are going to answer some questions. So we're now going to have a bit of a conversation. So Kripa has mentored Fiona, and they're both part of our mentoring program as well, with mentoring other women as part of this. So I'm going to kind of ask some questions and start a conversation. I've popped in the chat if you do have any questions throughout this. Just put those in the chat and we'll bring those to life in the Q&A part. So welcome, Kripa and Fiona.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to let you probably do a 30-second each introductions to yourself, if that's okay.
Sure.
Are you okay to start, Kripa?
Sure. So I've got about 20 plus years of experience in the ITES space, primarily with utilities. And I'm currently looking at customer experience for Tata Consulting across the globe. So it's a $3 billion setup. And as part of other things that I also look at, I am the lead for diversity for Tata Consulting in the UK. I am also an industrial governor for Queen Mary's Institute, and I'm also a school governor. So there's, on top of that, I have a 4-year-old dog and an 8-year-old daughter. So I have my hands full.
Pretty busy. Thank you. Fiona, over to you.
Hi everyone. Yeah, Fiona, Tremlett. Yeah, I started my career in the utility sector as part of my degree. When I was studying civil engineering, I took a placement role at Yorkshire Water, and I've continued in the water sector ever since. Currently working with MWH treatment on Advanced Plus framework for United Utilities, where my current position is a bid manager, so taking projects through to a tender stage. Previous to that, I've had about 18 years experience in asset management. So I started this role only, I suppose, coming up to a year now ago. So just before COVID and the pandemic. So things have been a challenge starting a new job, but very positive as well. I have a husband at home. I have a 3-year-old daughter, and I have 2 dogs. So yeah, it's always busy, always exciting, things always happening.
Thanks both. Okay, so I'm going to start with the first question, which is, why did you both sign up to the WUN mentoring program? Did you see it within your network? Did somebody come knocking at the door? Why did you sign up? Really interested to understand that.
Would you want to go first, or?
I don't mind, anyone. Yeah, either.
Go for it, Fiona.
So I was first introduced to the Women's Utility Network at British Water Women in Water event that was held in our offices at MWH probably just over a year ago. And for me, it was quite something different to attend. I'd never really been to a conference that was predominantly female, or that also concentrated on the person and the individual rather than your career. So I mean, looking at, Angie, you spoke at that, and some other people online may have been there. I found it very inspiring to see people present at that conference, talk about their career, how they had developed, what they had done outside their normal work. And also something that I thought was really important as well is how they manage their home life balance. So at that time, I was in probably a role that I wasn't being fulfilled in at work, and I needed to make a change. So it kind of gave me that kick to start doing something. So first of all, I went to my managing director, told him that I wanted to change my role, do something else, but also told him that I had no idea what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew that I'd kind of gone as far as I could in my current role. But also, I mean, we have work all over the country, so I did want to make it clear that, that I do have a toddler at home, and while I'm flexible, I can't do maybe some of the things I previously could have done. So I was very lucky. Within a few weeks, I was given a new role within the company, and also, potential to develop in that role over the coming years. So to continue with that, I thought, I've heard these girls talk. They've talked about their mentors and how they've helped them through their career. I kind of want that. So I got one through work, and then I reached out to the website. The WUN website, had a look on there, was really impressed by the bios of everybody I read and what they had to offer. And from there, really, I registered to get a mentor, and that's where I met Kripa. So here we are.
Lovely, thank you. And hopefully we'll get to at some point within the next year to all be able to get together at a WUN event. It's not something that I've been involved in yet. I think I joined during the pandemic, so really looking forward to that. So Kripa, over to you then. Why did you get involved in WUN mentoring?
Oh wow, so many thoughts. I think I've been doing mentoring for a while within my organization. And as we were having conversations with some of my clients across the space, WUN came up, and there was a chat about how we could perhaps give back to the industry we've been so closely associated with. And I think from there on, it kind of just was a natural progression of just looking at the website, seeing what was there. It lined up very clearly with what I was already doing here. So it just seamlessly fit in at that point of time.
Thank you. So when you both started, and Fiona, I'm going to put you on the spot here, but I know we've had a previous conversation about this last week. How did you set out your expectations at the start? Did you know what you was getting yourself into when it came to mentoring?
No is probably the simple answer, but yeah, I think for me, the first thing was getting the mentor, and that felt like, you know, a goal to achieve that I wanted. You know, I got my mentor then, and I mean, I guess that I was ready to be challenged in some way. I knew I needed to do something about my development, but I didn't know what. Maybe in a bit of naivety, I thought, oh, you know, Kripa might tell me what I need to do and I'll go away and do it. But obviously that isn't the way the relationship works. But I do think some of the questions, and even the questions that were posed with Kripa at the very start of our interaction, I probably made up my answers at the time to thinking this is what I would like to do, maybe. Is it? I'm not sure. But I kind of put something out there to start moving towards. But it's only as that relationship developed and I've learned more about myself that actually I was able to pin down some of the things I wanted to do and get out of the mentorship. So at the start, I didn't know, but I think, you know, looking at nearly a year down the line, I have a much clearer idea now. So I thought maybe not at the right time, but I don't think there is a right time. I think sometimes you just need to do it, and hopefully the answers will come out of it.
Thanks, Fiona. A question for you, Kripa. Can you tell me if there was any challenges along the way throughout your mentoring relationship, and how did you overcome those together?
Absolutely. I think COVID was a big one, to be honest, because Fiona and I met twice before COVID. There was an element of asking a set of questions. There was an element of expectation setting. I think, like Fiona mentioned in the beginning, perhaps she might have gotten a little frustrated with me not giving her answers, but actually questioning what she wanted to do, how she wanted to do it. We spoke a lot about personal brand building and what would personal brand mean? How does it become an extension of you? Who are you? What is authenticity for you? What does that really mean? And I think some of those, like Fiona said, they were instant responses, which it was a question of how do we go around it. But I think we had a brilliant conversation, because some of the things that Fiona said are things that made me stop and consider and say, you know, I've talked about this. Have I done it myself? How can I be a better version of me if I wanted to do it? So I think there were challenges on both sides. One was what was expected versus what was being done. The second was how do we go beyond it and work around? Because the biggest thing is for me in mentoring as a mentee or a mentor is that pivot. How do you change your pivot? From a mentee's perspective is, am I ready to learn? Am I ready to question? Am I ready to challenge? And from the mentor's perspective, I think it is also if I'm challenging, am I doing it myself? Can I learn something? Can I see a different perspective? You tend to, after a period of time, kind of have a vision of the truth around you, because that's what you see. Sometimes it is very required that you go beyond that comfort zone, see a viewpoint which is completely different, and that helps you look at it and enhance what you're doing. So I think some of those helped. COVID put a stop to a lot of things. Fiona had her child, her dogs. I had my child, my dog, and work. But we managed to get back on track. So I think we just persevered.
Thank you both. Okay, final question then. So Fiona, I'll start with you and then go back to Kripa. What was, can you tell me what you got out of this relationship?
I guess it's really about developing supporting relationships. It's somebody there to support you and definitely to empower you, I think. You know, for me, being a mentor is an easier position to be in. For me personally, it's something I've done over a long period of time at work, but being a mentee was a completely different, perspective for me. I'm one of those people who don't take praise well. I don't like to speak about my achievements. I could tell you a list of things I need to be better at, but I think it's giving yourself time to think about yourself. Even when we put things on hold, I was working in the background. I didn't put it on hold and leave it. I mean, I'd have been embarrassed to pick up, contact with Kripa again and say, I've done nothing in the months we haven't spoken. But yeah, I definitely invested time in myself. That might be 5-10 minutes a week. It might be a bit more depending on time, but I've learned about myself. I can definitely say I know a lot more about myself than I did this time last year, and where I want to go, things that I love doing, things that I want to spend more time on. So it's definitely a developing relationship, but the support and definitely empowerment that I got from it, was quite overwhelming, really.
That's great to hear. Kripa, over to you then finally.
I think I've completely and thoroughly enjoyed speaking to Fiona. Some of the things she's said have hit home. It has been it's been stated very matter-of-factly. So for example, one of the things, and it still sticks with me, is Fiona makes it a point to write down absolutely everything that she's done well, whenever, through everything, and build that as part of what makes that tick in the box. And I think that's something for me to pick up. I tend to use my memory, which is fading away, but that's something that I've enjoyed. I've also enjoyed the fact that I've worked with someone outside a natural connection. And when I mean natural connection, it means work. You've got stuff that is common, what you can talk about a political situation or about a home situation, because pretty much anybody who can help you has some of those commonalities. So this was something completely outside of any of those buckets. So I've thoroughly enjoyed that. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. There's loads that I've written down there, little nuggets to take away. And Fiona, you said something, and it's something that we talk about within WUN, is that we don't really like to speak about our achievements and sing from the rooftops, and it's something that we should get into the habits of doing, because it's only ourselves that can sell ourselves. So yeah, as Angie's just said, really powerful. Thank you. So we're going to go into breakouts now. We'll give this 8 minutes. Is that okay, Hayley? Just to take us till 10:02, and then that gives us a little bit of time at the end to do some Q&A, because I know there's some questions coming through. I've written a few things down as well. So we'll go into breakouts. The purpose of these breakouts is to share your experiences of whether you're a mentor, a mentee. You can ask the breakouts that you're in, if you're thinking about starting either of those, how do you find the confidence to do it, and how you can support each other that's doing it. So yeah, if you're thinking about starting, how and where. So I'll leave it to Hayley to pop us in the breakouts, and we'll come back at 10:02.
Okay, so you're creating them now. It will pop up on your screen if you can. That's good. I'm just, some of the rooms is just still coming back. They've got 30 seconds. They're obviously having good conversations too.
Hayley, have we got a Q&A slide after this one? No. Perfect.
Okay, everyone's
back in?
Yeah, everyone's back.
Perfect. Okay, so WUN mentoring plug then. Let's get as many people on this call here today involved in our WUN mentoring program. Whether you're looking to mentor someone else and, you know, have that confidence to mentor someone else, because as Angie said, if you've had a career, you've got experience that you can share with somebody else. So our WUN mentoring program has blossomed over the last couple of years. The amount of mentors and mentees we've got joint program has increased. We're at 79% utilisation, which for us is fantastic. With you know 17 mentoring vacancies currently available. If there's anybody thinking at the minute, I need a mentor, but I'm not really sure, you know, who to go to, we've got a list of men and women who are fantastic that support that. So these slides will get sent out, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, and they'll have the link on there of how to sign up to become a mentor or how to sign up to become a mentee. So we're going to do a bit of Q&A now, and I'm just going to have a look in the chat. Sharon did pose a question.
I'll answer that one, Shauna, if you like, because I think the question was about, you know, do you take notes? This is my mentor. Oh, hang on, hold it here. This is my book that I keep for my mentoring conversations, and it's because I've got a really busy life and I struggle to differentiate between one mentoring conversation and another sometimes because my brain's quite full. But also, I think it's confidential, you know, it is just for me to recall the sort of really key points of the conversation that were really nuggety. Sometimes you need to go, yeah, but you've said that before and we still haven't addressed it, or particular phrases that people use when they talk about things that are quite insightful and tell you more than they mean. So I would, if it works for you, you know, take some notes, but they are for you and keep them to yourself kind of thing. Obviously the mentee will probably do something similar. I do worry when people don't write anything down. It's like, are you really taking part? But everybody's got their own styles, right? So that's my view on that one. And just to say, Shauna, the breakout session that we just had, we found somebody wanting to be a mentor and somebody wanting to be a mentee, and we might have just joined them up in the session. So
that's amazing.
You know, that was just brilliant. Yeah.
Awesome. My chat from before has completely disappeared, but I have just had another question come in. Do we have to complete the whole form to become a mentee? I don't really know what I want / need, which scares me to completing the form. I think it's absolutely fine. The fact that you want a mentor is a starting point, and we've just discussed in ours that, you know, you're a goal orientated person if you want a mentor, because that's you starting that step towards a goal. And it's okay that I think you don't 100% know what it is that you want, but I think you, and this is just my opinion, and anybody else can chip in with their opinion. I think just really have a think about what you want to mentor for. You don't have to think of, well, I know I need to get this skill out of somebody, or I need somebody with this experience, but having to think about, sorry, something else just popped up, having to think about, you know, what it is that you're going to be using that person's time for, because as Angie said, you know, we're all busy, time is precious, but people do want to help you. And I don't know if anyone...
Yeah, I mean, I think have a form that's intimidating isn't great, so we might have to have a little look at that. But I think also it's it might just be that what you need a mentor for is to help you work out what it is that you need, and that's okay too, and you could write that down. So it's not, we don't filter the forms on if they filled it in properly and therefore they can't have a mentor, you know, that kind of thing. It is very much on a needs basis, and you will find that your first conversation with your mentor will sort a lot of those issues out that you might have. So I'd encourage you to have a go anyway.
I think we've probably got time for one or two more questions. Something that came out I just wanted to bring to life is there's often been times where we've let relationships fizzle out. So you've not brought it to a close. That could have a bit of a negative impact on either one of the party, because you've not really said, oh, thanks for everything. This is what I've got out of it, or this is what I've achieved. So if somebody's coming to the end of their mentoring relationship where it feels like there's not much else to get out of it, how would you, Angie, suggest bringing that to a close? If you've not already set out, okay, we're going to do 6 sessions and then we're done.
Yes. So this is a tricky one. So I would really, really encourage you that on the first session that you ever have, you talk about what happens at the end, because nobody does. And this is the bit that always feels awkward. But don't forget, it's a transactional relationship in a way. So your mentor will not feel mortally wounded if you go, you know what, I think we've covered all the things that I need right now. That's brilliant. Thanks ever so much. But you do need to do that. So the mentees, and whoever said mentees have a harder time, they do, right? Because you're the one who's going to do the work. You're the one who's going to be stretching yourself. So, and you're also the one who will need to know when to call it a day. Now, your mentor will encourage you, right? So a good mentor will reach out to you and say, you know, do you want another session? Have we covered all the things that we need to? You know, and they'll make you not feel guilty in any way. The worst thing that you can do is ignore your mentor when they ask you if you want another session. So we've got to woman up.
I love it. Thank you, Angie. So I'm just going to bring it all to a close. It's been a great session, and I'm sure that we could talk forever about this. Really appreciate everybody's time, and we'll send out the slides so you know how to get in touch in terms of the WUN mentoring. So I'm going to hand back over to Hayley.
Thanks, Shana. Yeah, I'd add mine to that. Incredibly interesting and hugely valuable, being a mentor and a mentee. So I urge you to go and look at our website. I'd also like to introduce you to Helen, put a name to a face. Helen, if you want to unmute and just say hello to everybody, introduce yourself, because you're the person in the background that's dealing with these applications and working with Shana on it.
Yeah, so hi, the emails come through to myself, and with details regarding the form, if there's one aspect of the form you don't feel comfortable filling in, just leave it blank and we can have a conversation about that if I need further information. And we do try and match as many people as possible to their selected mentors. We ask people to suggest 3 mentors that they'd like to work with. But one thing I would ask people to check is whether there's that mentor has any capacity. We are building a new website, and there will be a strapline much clearer to show whether there is capacity or not for that mentor. But just going forward, just click on to see the profile of the mentor, and it tells them whether they've got capacity or not.
Brilliant. Thanks, Helen. So in terms of what's coming up for the next couple of months here, March's event is on the 10th of March. Energy UK net zero policies. So another one of our co-founders, Rebecca Sedler, will be hosting this session. So focus on the net zero policy. And our guest speaker there, Audrey Gallagher from Energy UK. And then into April, we're looking at routes into industry. So we'll be looking at apprenticeship schemes and other ways that we're attracting people into the industry. And May, our focus is on nuclear. So look out for those events on Ticket Tailor. And as Helen mentioned, we're building a new website at the moment. So lots of exciting stuff to follow on that as well. A recording of this session will be available on YouTube channel. And for those of you maybe having a quick panic about the discussions in the breakout rooms, those aren't recorded. So it's just the main session on there as well. And as always, please interact with us on social media, follow us on LinkedIn, all the latest events and things that are on there. And please then get involved and contribute. We'd love to hear your thoughts on what else you'd like to hear from us going forward. And with that, I will call it to a close and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.